Chef James was about to turn his guests into ingredients when suddenly the sound of police sirens came from outside. Realizing something was wrong, James quickly told the waiters to clean up the scene and fix the guests' makeup, afraid the police might notice something unusual. Annie smiled to herself. She was the one who had secretly called for help using a radio moments earlier. Soon, a police officer walked into the restaurant and asked who had used the radio to call 911, but the guests were too afraid to speak. James calmly explained that they were just enjoying dinner. While the officer looked a little suspicious, he suddenly recognized one of the guests as a famous celebrity he had admired for years. Excited, he asked for an autograph. The star couldn't refuse. But when the officer looked at the signed paper, he realized it was actually a desperate plea for help. At once, the guests broke their silence, accusing James of holding them captive and begging the officer to save them. Everyone was pointing fingers at James, until in the next second, the officer pointed his gun at the candle on Annie's table, lit it with a lighter, and then casually walked toward the kitchen with a grin. That's when everyone realized the officer was just part of James's cruel show. Despair filled the room, but Annie still wasn't ready to die. She remembered how James never smiled after becoming a successful chef, except back when he was an apprentice making cheeseburgers. So she stood up and took a gamble. Annie said she wanted a cheeseburger. To her surprise, James was so moved he nearly cried. She explained that she was starving, and all his fancy dishes were just for show. What she wanted now was a simple cheeseburger to fill her stomach. In the next moment, James seemed to reconnect with his days as a young apprentice. He went into the kitchen and made Annie a cheeseburger, complete with fries. Personally bringing the plate to her, he eagerly watched as she took a bite.
As a cheeseburger.
For the first time in years, James smiled again. Just as he waited for Annie to take another bite, she said the burger was too big and asked him to pack it to go. Without hesitation, James wrapped it up and handed it to her. Annie took the bag, turned, and walked straight out of the restaurant. By simply ordering a cheeseburger, Annie escaped certain death. The remaining guests weren't so lucky. The waiters sprinkled them with breadcrumbs, poured egg yolk and cream over them, dressed them in cotton candy coats, and crowned them with chocolate hats. Then James stepped into the center of the room, holding a piece of burning charcoal in his hand.